And this one is a head-to-head card battler where each player is going to have their own deck of cards, with each of the cards having different types of elements on them that you'll be able to combine together in different ways in order to help yourself or harm your opponents. But something to note about this one is that in order to deal damage to your opponent, you're actually going to be using an app to track the player's health and also scan the cards and then issue the effects of your combos. And the publishers were nice enough to send me a prototype of this one, and I gotta say these cards are some of the nicest cards I've ever seen. These are really thick cardstock and they are quite a nice size. I don't know if the final version will be the exact same as these cards, but I imagine they will be about this size because you do need to scan them on your phone. And I think the added size makes it scan just a little bit easier. But something that I really do like about this game is that all you need is these 2 decks of cards in your phone in order to play it. So you can pretty much take this anywhere you want to go, and you'll be able to play this with almost anyone because the rules for this one are also very simple, and everything you need to know is pretty much outlined on the cards. The way that the game plays is that each player is going to be assigned to one of the decks. So if this was my deck, I would always be drawing 4 cards at the start of my turn, and then I'd be able to play these cards in order to issue attacks on my opponent. And one thing I should mention that is a little unfortunate with the prototype is that it only works with iPhone at the time of me filming this, and unfortunately for me, I am an Android user, so I can't actually show you the app on my phone, but they do have a great video on the campaign page website if you do want to see what that looks like. But like I said, there are a bunch of different types of element cards you can draw, and they all have varying effects. For example, this water card is really interesting because it actually causes the player to be wet for 5 turns. And I do have this lightning card that adds additional damage if the opponent is wet. So although I can't combine these 2 cards in order to modify their effects in a single turn, I can still play them one after another in order to chain them together for some different effects. Cards do also just have their own single effect just for using them. For example, this Earth card will damage the opponent for 1 health, but if I were to combine it with a Fire card, then combining them together will turn them into Lava, which will instead deal 5 damage. But you might have noticed at the top here that there is an effect with an arrow pointing away from you and an arrow pointing towards you, and those are the different effects that will happen to your opponent or to yourself. For example, if my opponent played water against me, I could play this Fire card to not only deal damage towards them, but to also remove the wet effect that their water would have had on me. The same goes for when you play a water card. If I was ignited by a Fire card in a previous turn, playing a water card would dispel that effect. As you're playing the game, you might also come across these one-time use special effect cards that can have all sorts of varying effects, but something to note is that there are these special gold cards, and whenever you play one of these, it's going to be adding an orb to your side of the screen on the phone. That orb will either go to the right or the left side of your phone, and then you can just put your card on the associated side to remember what exactly that spell does. And at any time during a future turn, you can just click that orb to activate this spell. So this gives you a mechanism that you can lock in a spell to then use on a future turn, which is a really fun dynamic. But the game continues like this until a player brings their opponent's health down to 0, and then that player wins the game. And if you do want to check this one out, I will have it linked in the description below. And of course, you can click to get notified.